Right, here we are, the new episode of Moneyball. We have got our budget going into next season. What is our budget going to be? It did appear quickly on my list. As you can see, I've already sort of read it in terms of the game. I quickly skipped past it. I didn't get a chance to quite see the number. What is it going to be? Our transfer budget going into next season. 2.32 million. And welcome back, everybody, to our Moneyball series with Paris FC. Yes, we just saw the terrible transfer budget that we were given. How disappointing. We're going to finish on a pretty good points total. Clearly the second best team in the league. And yeah, let's see what we do in our last game. I'm going to bring the first team back out. For the last few matches, I've actually been rotating the team a little bit with some of the more squad players getting some minutes. One, to sort of like, you know, not guarantee any injuries to any key players going into the transfer window, which, I mean, we end up might selling a couple of them, right? But most importantly as well, to try maybe increase the value and the reputation almost of some of those backup players. But we'll see how we go in today's game. We're going to play the first team again and see them off. It's like a one last chance to see all the players play. I mean, the three strikers have all scored pretty similar goals. Now, I'm not quite sure whether that's Ramirez doing really well, or should the two starting strikers have scored even more? I don't know. Like, it's impressive though, isn't it? Well, definitely Suxum should have done better with his conversion rate of 9%. I mean, that's lower than almost every other player. It is the lowest in the team. So, there you go. The complete first team is back. Nuruddin in goal, Farese, Christensen and Jensen across the back, with Mensah and Correa at wing back, Samuel and Dai holding, Da Costa as the 10, Kaufman and Prika up front. Assistant manager says, fans have been fantastic. Okay, and we're on the way. They're going to play the same formation as us, incidentally. Our Nice. Kaufman gets the ball, plays it across to Samuel. Samuel whacks in the far post, headed away. I'm obviously going to definitely bring in on Mirez at some point to get him some minutes. It'll probably come off at half-time, actually. Prika's going to score. And if any of the strikers score, I'm going to sub that one off because I want to make sure that they will get the equal opportunity to get as many goals as possible. Really. Is that going to be onside? It should be. Disallowed. Actually, I didn't check if Paris Saint-Germain are still undefeated. Are they still undefeated? Are they going to get their undefeated season? They are, unless they lose their last game. So, that's not good. And they're home to Strasbourg. They're going to get it. They're going to get their undefeated season. They're going to get the Champions League win as well. Oh, they're in the Champions League final against Napoli. It could be the worst possible season for us, even though it's our best possible season. PSG could go the whole domestic season undefeated and win the Champions League. Now, they've lost to Leipzig. It's not technically an undefeated season. In fact, they lost twice. But, in fact, they lost 3 times this season, but not in the domestic league. Oh, this could be a disaster. They're at home and they need to draw as well for their undefeated season. So disappointing. We'll say dig into the lads. Yeah, I've also brought on Suxum for the other striker to make sure they've all roughly got 45 minutes each of 3 strikers that have scored, to give them as even minutes as possible. Although, obviously, Mirez is going to be a lot lower on minutes because he hasn't been the starting striker for most of the season. Correa gets through. He's got a chance to play somebody through. Go himself. Suxum has a shot and he misses. That's why he doesn't convert any chances. This highlight is going to continue. Don't know what the keeper is going to do with this. He's going to go long. I think he is now, is he? He's taking a lot of time off the clock with that. We're going to win the first header. We're going to bring it down and play. Correa plays and Suxum again, flicks it on, and he's offside. I think Mirez. He missed anyway. He is still 0-0 in the PSG game, incidentally. And obviously we're going to finish second now no matter what happens, which is going to be good to get the money into the club and see what the actual projections are on the finances as Suxum misses another. Suxum misses another one-on-one. Unbelievable. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the financial projections are going to be once it's actually factored in our end of season money and our Champions League money going into next season. Obviously, the budget doesn't reflect it, but hopefully the projections might pretty soon. As we're coming towards the end of the game here, this could be a close finish. Are they going to get a goal? It's going to be a highlight for them, you'd have thought. Wow. 2 minutes left. Come on, Strasbourg, get yourself as a goal. It's whipped into the box from us. And Dai goes towards Jensen. Takes some touches, plays it across. Whatever we get, obviously, we'd like to beat next season, but then we're going to have European competition anyway. Like, if we're not going to challenge a title, just getting top 4 in 7 form would be fine, and then doing a proper challenge for the European competition that we're in, and the French Cup. And it's a goal. Suxum finally gets himself a goal there, and it's 1-0. And I think PSG have just done it. I think they've got themselves an undefeated season. What a shame. What a shame that we couldn't prevent that. We obviously had 2 opportunities ourselves to stop it. One, really, because the away game was never really going to be that realistic for us at this stage. Oh, they're in behind it. Nope, they're not. We didn't clear it. Let's go into the game. That is going to do it. Paris FC win 1-0. And we finish second in the league. We'll say well done, lads. it was a good season for us from our perspective. PSG got their draw. They go the whole season undefeated. Okay, a few things to come now for the rest of this episode. One is an in-depth stats review of the season. That's going to be coming up. We're going to then also see if PSG win the Champions League for their first time in their history. And then thirdly, what we're going to look at is we're also going to do our first ever player attribute reveal. Now, I asked on Twitter and on YouTube how to do this, and I think that the best way, and from the results that I looked at, it was quite clear that 2/3 of people voted in a way that they wanted to see a attribute reveal of some sort in the save, just differentiated on how specifically to do it. So I think that what we're going to do is go with the majority, which was to show it when we sell players. But then how do you do it when you sell players? Do you do it every time you sell a player? Do you do it every year? How do you do it? So my thought process early on here. So what we'll do right now is, for example, at the end of this season, we will show you all of the players that we sold in the first season. So if we go back through here, transfer history, 22-23. So what I would show you is this year, I'd show you everybody that's on that list right there. And if anybody's retired, I can go back to the save file and show you at least them in that season, right? So that's what I'm thinking that we do. So why do it 2 years before and not do it up to date with where we are at right now? Now, somebody made a very good point that if I was to do it like we're at right now, we might be able to see a couple of the players that we let go and see their star rating, see their attributes and that kind of thing. And it might ruin it a little bit for some people following along, because then they'll be able to try and work out roughly how good a player is in reference to somebody else. This is quite far back and far enough back where I don't think it should be that close. It prevents that problem, but it's also recent enough where you're still seeing players that most people will remember, especially as we get further in to the save. But to make sure that everybody's refreshed on what happened, we'll obviously go through the league table. So what we'll do is we'll go through the league table, refresh ourselves on what we did in the season, and then go through the team as it was. So what you can do is you click on Club Info, go to History and Best 11. You can actually go through the years. If you don't know, you could do this already. And you can go back to the year that you want. So we're going back to the year. So I can show you the league table as it was in that year. I can show you the team. Just give us a little refresher on what the team exactly was like, because it can start to overlap a little because we get a player that maybe was a backup player one year, then he was a first team player the next, that sort of thing. So we can review the situation as it was. And then after we had a quick review, we go back through to the transfers. And then we go to the year that we're looking at. Then I show you all the players that we've got. I will be showing you them as they are right now in this save, because it's easy for me to track who's gone on the screen once they've already left the club, obviously. And at the end of the series, the very last episode of the series, we will be going back through all the save files to review all the teams as they were going through at the same point, right? So, and somebody else made a good question saying that if we're doing like a series based on stats not showing attributes, why would we show attributes at all in the series? I think the reason is for the people that want to see the attributes, which is obviously the majority of people watching the series, is that they want to be able to see whether I've been successful or I've made a mistake in my stats recruitment and not have to wait 10 seasons for the series to conclude to be able to see the results, right? You want to be able to see if I bought a player, he was really, really good, and we sold him because we just couldn't keep him because too many big clubs wanted him. How good was that player really? Or if we bought a player for a good amount of money that looked really good on the stats, but came from a really obscure league and it didn't quite work out. Did not quite work out because that player was just way below the level. And that way people can see the successful players that I purchased, with the stats, etc., relatively early on, but they can also see my mistakes as well in real time, almost as the series is going, without it being too close to ruin what the team is right now, and not too far that it's left, a decade before and everybody's forgotten who the players really are. So I think it's trying to find the best balance of the middle. On Twitch, when I do my series on Twitch, we don't show any attributes ever, and then we show them all right at the end of the series. But there's no doubt that I've always felt like there's been a huge push for people that watch the YouTube series to always want to see the attributes in some form. It happened last year, and I had to sort of adjust the series to it, and I think this year as well. But I think this is a better way of doing it, because last year, I think I did it every 2 or 3 years, and I showed everybody that was in the squad at the time, my own players included. And I don't want to do that really this year, especially because we've started off so well. So I'm not going to show any players that I've currently got. I'm not going to show at all, and we'll just go like this. So this year, we'll show everybody going back to the 22-23 season. Then at the end of next season, we'll move on and do the 23-24. So always working like 2 years behind, because this is this year's players that were out. Then you've got last year's players out, and then it's the year before that, right? So it's always working those years behind. So hopefully that makes sense. And every year now, this will be included in this episode. So in this episode, when it's always the sort of end of season review, looking at the stats, it'll always include an attribute reveal of the 2 seasons before. So there'll be certain players, like the one I'm looking forward to seeing quite early on are these 2 players here, Moreno and Neris. That's 2 players that we bought in for really cheap. We sold for big profits, and they both looked really, really good in the team. Obviously, we're not going to see them this year because we're going to be looking at this season for players out. We won't see them next year because we're going to be looking at this season, but the season after that, we will then see them in 2027. We will then be able to see how good they were. And we can as well, like, what I can do is while I'm doing this, I can go back to the save file and look at them as they were then if I really want to. But most players that we sell, obviously, will be at least relatively young. So then nobody's going to be retiring or like too far past beyond their playing ability, their peak of their playing ability, except for the first season because we were selling players that we didn't buy. But everybody that we've bought has been relatively within range of being in that sort of like 19 to 27 bracket most of the time, right? So it should be fine. Hopefully that all made sense when I explained that. So although we've basically done most of the steps here, I'm going to leave it to the end of the actual episode because it's the last thing I want us to do before we go and do our recruitment for this year in the next episode. We'll save the actual like attribute reveal for the end of this episode. There's one more cool thing I want to show you as well in the game that we can do when we're doing this kind of stuff. But let's move on for now and let's do the in-game end of season review. Let's do a stats review and let's see how PSG got on in the Champions League final, which hopefully they lose, but we'll see how it goes. Again, no matter where I go in this episode, I'm always in the way of something, but I'll try and start the way as much as I can. Maybe the left side is better. So yeah, we ended up finishing 13th on average possession. I mean, you can see we're quite a direct side. It's not just the fact that that was average possession. Look at our passes completed quite low, in fact, which is quite interesting there. Right, I've got myself, I think, completely out the way for this one. I've made the box slightly small. The camera's be slightly small for this. Hopefully that's okay. I think people will be preferring it with me staying out the way of the actual stats. So as you can see there, then yellow cards, we managed to be top of that list. Red cards, we're going to be top of that list as well with 5. Goals per game, we were the top of the list actually. We scored more goals than Paris Saint-Germain. That's interesting. I didn't quite notice that, to be honest. XG performance, and these had a 25.52 XG performance. So guess what team we're going to look at for strikers? In fact, I'm just going to look right now. Divock Origi looks like he was the one that was doing the business with an XG overperformance of 9.38. I mean, too much money, but that's what the situation was right there. PSG not doing that much on that, to be fair. XG4 goes to PSG only just, like, very, very close. But non-penalty XG per 90 goes to us. So if you don't include the 200 penalties that they get given every year, just cause. Oh no, it was 10. It was just a 10 for PSG, but it was 3 more than us. Crosses completed, we are by far the most on crosses. Goals from corners, we're actually the leading goal scorers on corners this year, which is good. Dribbles made, we are 3rd on the list. High intensity sprints, we are top. And final third passes 4, we are quite low down actually. XG against, we had the 4th best defensive record in terms of that. Corners conceded, we conceded 2 this year, which is the 2nd best. Most possessions won with 4,609, that is by far the most in the league. We conceded 3 penalties, and PSG with 2, and Lille, Nice, and Rennes are top on 1. Opposition passes per defensive action. Now that shows to me that we're getting pressure early on the opposition teams, and I think that's because we've got 2 strikers and an offset cam. That really helps us press teams in an obscure way that stops them playing out against us. We're higher than PSG, which is really impressive. Average attendance by capacity, we had 99% on that. Sellouts, we had 16, they had 17 to PSG. And the net transfer spend, PSG are top on nearly 60 million. We are 14th on 700 grand. And the salary, I'm well out the way so you can see this in all its glory. Our salary per annum is 16.16 million. Theirs is 267 million pounds. Unbelievable. Okay, let's have some fun in the data hub. Okay, so it's a one-off game, so this doesn't really help loads, but you know how last year we looked at the pass map for the last game, we had the right wing back just fizzing balls in behind left, right and centre the entire match. João Carreira is actually passing it more often to the right pivot player than just in behind. So I think that shows when you get, it's a one-off game, don't get me wrong, but it is from what I've seen as well, when you get slightly better players, like the right centre-back and left centre-back, when they've got more dribbling, more composure, more passing, more vision, when they've got all those things in their abundance as players, they're more willing that despite in the way the tactics set up, they're going to play it short more often. And then when the wing-backs have got more composure, etc., they're less likely to just go in behind to the striker every time. And they can look to use the pivot players. They can look to retain the ball slightly more, right? And I think we can see a bit of that there. Okay, so this is an interesting one because I'm not sure what to do with Nuruddin because he's a good goalkeeper. Is he a Champions League level great goalkeeper? That's the question. I'm not too sure. So looking at this, he is in our advanced goalkeeping graph here. He's in quality shot stopping saves most shots. So you want him to be as harmless as possible. Now he's below Donnarumma, he's below Nice's goalkeeper as well actually, but he's in the right area. Which, I mean, if he's in, let's just say that's the top 4 or 5 goalkeepers there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's in the top 5 goalkeepers within our own league in terms of the stats that he had. Now, is that factoring in our style of football a little bit? Are we if we had a goalkeeper that was bad, would they be generally in the right areas anyway? Would they be in the top 5 anyway, sort of thing? That's what I'm sort of getting at. Or do we give up a lot of shots, and is Nuruddin just being actually pretty good for us? It's hard to tell. Pretty good on his distribution as well, though. You could see here our wing-backs on crossing and defenders. Lots of crossing and very inaccurate, apparently, but at least they're up there. So this graphic here is showing you how good they are winning the ball per 90 and how often they give it away per 90. So a nice little blend here. So you want top left's what you want. They win the ball a lot and they keep it a lot. So top left, and it's no surprise to me whatsoever that Ferrari's in that bracket. Talby and Christensen are really close, and so is Jensen. Now, as you go further down the list, you see that our other players are very far down. It's interesting that, our 4 centre-backs are all sort of close, but Ferrari is the best. He's just that side of the line, isn't he? Okay, now let's just take a look at this for a graphic here. So, Da Costa, again, I thought was brilliant this season. This shows him highly creative, high-quality creating from open play. Now, Da Costa's a bit of a conundrum because you look at his stats, you notice that he gets a lot of assists, and a lot of his assists, or at least some of them, come from him taking corners, right? So you think instantly, okay, he's probably looking more creative on his stats because he takes corners. But here we can see clearly. So looking at this graphic here, you have got key passes per 90 minutes, okay? And then you've got open play expected assists per 90 minutes. Looking at this graphic here, it shows that our midfield players play a lot of direct passes and give them away quite a lot because they don't play that many passes when they do their inaccurate. So that must mean when they get it, they're not passing it a load, but they are definitely giving it away, which indicates probably being a bit too direct. Forwards then, aerial. Pretty good, like pretty average, but all in that sort of good area or close to being good. Scoring, I mean, Mires is by far the most clinical. Mires is probably the statistical best striker in the squad, which is worrying because I feel like he's a backup player, but how can I think that, judging on this? Interestingly, that we don't have many high players for like dribbling forwards. I'm just looking at the players that are actually on this list. A lot of them are wingers, actually, so that's probably why none of our strikers are in this list. And I think that is going to do it for our data hub. Okay, then looking at our main view of stats here. So anything that stands out. Da Costa on a header-1 ratio of 26% does stand out to me, and that is not very good. But let's break this up by position and let's go through it. So let's have a little look at the strikers to start off with. Okay, so first of all, before we go through this, ignore the position selected on the left. That's just to get them all together at the top, for whatever position I'm looking at. And without me having to go through the filters, having to do all this every time. But there we go then. So looking at the strikers. So I've just sorted them by goal scored. 2 of them obviously on the same one. Extra performance clearly goes to Kaufman and Mires. So looking at that, actually Parika is the one that's probably should be dropped out of the 3 strikers supposed to drop one because his non-penalty XG is pretty good, so he gets the chances. His extra performance is not good at all, and his conversion ratio is slightly lower, so he gets the chances, he just misses them, and he gets the most shots, so he's quick, he gets the most chances for himself, but he misses the most as well. So in terms of value, and I'm going to keep going back to it, in terms of value, Parika is not worth £20 million to us. If we can get £20 million for him, I would take that because he's not providing me with the stats that says that he's worth it. Now, when we look at his attributes in 3 or 4 years' time, I'm sure he's going to look brilliant. He's going to be a brilliant player. But we're not here to judge the attributes. We're judging the stats. What stats is he providing for us, you know? I'm pretty sure he's going to be brilliant, Parika, but I've got to be honest. Give me a good offer. I'm going to take it, I think. His minutes per goal is the worst out of the... I'm talking about the 3 mainly. I'm ignoring Suxum. He's there, but he's there in name only. He's going to be gone next year. Let's not even kid ourselves. Conversion ratio, he's the lowest on that. Shot on target ratio, he's actually not the worst. Kaufman is. Sprints per 90, Kaufman's the lowest on that. I mean, rather than saying that Parika is the worst, I should be saying that the Mires is the best on a lot of these. Mires has really impressed me on the stats here. Dribbles per 90 goes to Parika. He's obviously the more quicker, agile, in behind type of the forwards. Header-1 ratio, 42% isn't great for Mires, but it's acceptable, especially for the right striker. But he's not the right striker. That's my only problem with Mires. Like, for somebody who's the sort of big man link-up striker, he doesn't do a great job of doing that. But he statistically got the goals against a lot of the lesser teams early on, but he did then do it in the bigger games as well. So, after all of that, Kaufman is the only striker that I think his valuation wouldn't... I'm happy to keep him for another couple of years. I think he gives me good enough stats, and he gives me stats in the areas he's supposed to give me them. Like, he's good in the air. He's not as good at dribbling, but he is good in the air. He's good at finishing just about. His XG performance is good. It's good enough. Right, we like to have that 5-ish sort of XG performance if we can, and it provides good information to us about the strikers. Minutes per goal is okay. Like, a lot of it's okay. It's good enough, right? But Preca, I think his valuation has exceeded his stats, and I think Mires isn't giving me the right type of stats, but he's scoring goals. So I don't need to sell Mires. I'm not that interested in selling Kaufman at all. Preca, I am, not because I think he's a bad player. I'm sure next year he could do better for us, but at £20 million, that's way out of value with his statistical output or input for us, right? So, interesting. Okay, so for the two number 10s, there isn't too much really to judge. I mean, Urso played a lot of times as a pivot as well. DaCosta's clearly the best. But let's just see how good his stats really were. Assist per 90, 0.5. So every other game he's getting assist. That's incredible. His expected assist per 90, 0.4. Well, that's pretty good. Open play key passes per 90, 1.66. That's also pretty good. Progressive passes, 0.6. Don't expect it as much from the cam. Conversion ratio of 16%. Shot on target ratio of 40. That's pretty good. Jumps per 9.59. Distance cover per 90, 8.3. Cross is okay. Absolutely woeful in the air. But generally, I think that he scored really highly on the important things. Goals and assists. And he wasn't maybe quite as creative in terms of his actual open play key passes and maybe some other stuff, but he got the absolute core things in there, right? And he was brilliant. And his value, to me, there's absolutely no chance of selling him for 8.6 million or even close to it. So if I was to get like 15 to 20, I might consider it, and we're not going to get that. So DaCosta is probably going to stay unless I get another number 10 who scores almost exactly the same stats as that, but happens to be maybe a few inches taller and slightly better in the air. Because, I mean, but even then, it's going to be tough. Never say never in the Moneyball save. I'm just trying to like give you like a pre-context of, although I'm saying right now I absolutely love him and I don't want to sell him, how it could happen. But I'd say there's a 90% chance he goes nowhere. Not for that money anyway. Okay, then moving on to pivot players. Looking at them here, I would say that I put them sort of in order of who played the most and sort of who was the best. But interestingly, Samuel has no goals or assists, which is quite interesting. Open play key passes per 90, though. I mean, Ndai's quite low on that, but he did score 5 goals. But Samuel's got way more open play key passes, which is a bit unusual considering he's the proper pivot player. Progressive passes per 90 is ahead of Ndai as well. The other players played so many less games from the start, it's hard really to compare them that well. Well, I mean, I could compare them, but I'm not too interested. It's quite obvious those three are going to go, and it's these two, it's more a case of, are they both going to stay, and what's the value for the stats they've given us? Pass completion for Ndai is slightly lower, which we expected. Dribbles per 90, though, so that shows there. Samuel has got all the progressive passes, all the open play key passes stuff, but Ndai has got distance cover per 90 just, but sprints per 90 is not even higher on that. But dribbles per 90 he is, goals he is. He's slightly more positive than Samuel, but Samuel's really impressed me with his stats there. And the only thing to really note about Samuel as a pivot player is he's left-footed. Like, is that a good thing? Is that something we want to replicate going into next year? Tackle-1 ratio is very close. Tackles per 90 goes to Ndai by quite a lot, as does interceptions per 90, as does pressures attempted, but not necessarily pressures completed, and possession won, and he's significantly worse in the air. I'd say they're a good partnership. They're either sides of like a similar coin, aren't they? One slightly more defensive, but better at passing. The other one slightly more aggressive and able to dribble and score goals. Okay, then looking at wing backs, I have sorted them by first choice right, first choice left, backup right, backup left. Then the emergency player is never going to be staying this year anyway. So let's have a look at them. So dribbles per 90 quite clearly goes to the two starters. Hadjam's in thirds, and then Nail's actually fourth, and it's Nunez that's last. I'm pretty certain that both Nail and Nunez are both going to be going. Hadjam could still stay. Just want to have a look at this in a bit more detail. Cross completion's pretty similar across the board. Hadjam is the worst though. Sprints per 90, that's quite a big difference, isn't it, between like Hadjam on 19.54 to Nunez on 24.53. Open play key passes by far goes to Mentor on 2.69, way ahead of Hadjam 1.58, who was pretty big last year on it though. Progressive passes is pretty close across everyone except for Correa, who's on 5.3. Tackle-1 ratio, Nunez is by far the worst, that's terrible. Hadjam on 65, that's not great, is it, to be honest? Everybody else is fairly close. And the last thing really to look at is header-1 ratio. Nunez on 47, he's definitely gone. And then, to be fair, Correa on 40%, that's really close to being borderline. That's not good enough. And looking at the valuations, I mean, Hadjam's worth 4.5 to 7 million. It said that before about Hadjam, though. and we couldn't sell him for anywhere near what he was saying. So if that's correct, that valuation is worth way more than his actual stats. He's going to be gone if that's correct. My gut feeling is it won't be, and I won't get anything near close to it. So Nahal is on a terribly big contract. I need to get rid of him. That's been one of the worst signings I've made so far in terms of not transfer money, but wages and the output they give me. So hopefully we can get rid of Nahal in some form this year. Okay, then lastly, centre-backs we're going to look at. This is going to be interesting. So really, there was obviously Bacalo, who's already been sold for next year. That one doesn't really matter. So we'll start off here. Tackle-1 ratio. 81 to 83 is pretty close across there. Talby, who's the fourth choice, really, is a bit lower on that. Tackles per 90 goes up massively for Jensen, who plays on the right of the back three. Key tackles per 90 goes to Christensen, who plays in the middle. Actually, no, Talby on 0.34. Interceptions per 90 goes to Talby on 7.08. That's pretty good. That's really good, in fact. Jensen second. Interestingly, the Christensen is bottom of that. He's the middle one, of course. Overall possessions one, though, goes to Talby, and then Christensen, and the two side ones after that. Ferraze is really low on that. So sprints per 90, yeah, Christensen's really low on that. Two side centre-back slightly higher. Open play key passes, who's the most on this? Is it going to be Ferraze again? It's not. Christensen's higher this time, but Ferraze is second, of course. Then dribbles per 90, Ferraze is top yet again on the wrong side of the back three with 3.31. Jensen is second on 3.0. The middle one's obviously the lowest, which we expect. And then progressive passes goes to Christensen, who's the middle centre-back. That is interesting. And aerially, crucially, they are all 82 or above. Right, so it looks like that for us to have a substantial back three that are good defensively, to get good enough match ratings and be a good solid centre back for us, that regardless of all their other stats, they have to also be good in the air, all of them, not just the three that start, but the ones that come in as well. So that's what that's showing me there. I don't want to get a centre back that's on lower than 82% header win ratio. They'd have to really be perfect across the board everywhere else for us to consider that. That's like the second year in a row now I've sort of picked that up from the stats. Okay, then, here we are. We are going to do our first ever attribute reveal in our Moneyball series. I can't wait to do this and have a look at our players from the first season and have a look at some of the players that got us promoted from the second tier of the French League to the first. So, as a reminder, this was your best team for that year. We had Mpassi in goal with Samir across the back with Dabila, Lefort in there, Kofi and Hadjam across the wing-backs there. Benawa, Piri as the two pivots with Chihiri as the 10, and then Gori and Morgan up front. And some notable sub people there. And I'll get out of the way for you so you can see that on its glory. There you go. That was your team. That was the league table for this year. We finished on 74 points, 21 wins, 11 draws, 6 defeats. Did pretty good. Sure, we didn't win the league, but there we are. Here we go then. So what we're going to do now is go into our preferences, go back to our skin colours, reset to default, and click confirm. Okay, so the first player I'd like to show you on this list is Jonathan Iglesias. Now, unfortunately, he is actually retired. Now, don't forget, at the end of the series, we're going to go back through each season as it was and look at the players as they were for that season. We're looking back on players now. We're looking back on them as they were 2 years ago. And it's probably only going to be players that were there in the first year because a lot of the players that we've sold since have been a lot younger when we've sold them. It's unlikely they're going to be retired. But I think for the players that we missed out on, we're just going to miss out on a few of the players here early on that retired. So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. Okay, so the first player that we are going to look at in this series is going to be Ousmane Kante. Now, Ousmane Kante was almost a starting centre-back for us. I think he was fourth on the list, but he played quite a few games for us and was pretty influential. And he was, I think, 33 or something like that at the time. So how old is he now? Ousmane Kante, he's 35. Okay. He wasn't too bad. Like, if you imagine him 2 years prior, probably wasn't quite as slow, but for a Liga Un team, he was very good, and probably we were right to move on from him for the top division anyway. But no, he looks all right. Maybe could be a star member in the future. Who knows? Okay, then Ivan Filipic. Now, Ivan Filipic was like almost our joint starting goalkeeper, wasn't he, for that season in the second tier? Let's see how good he was. Okay, well, pretty good for the again second tier of French football. I think that's pretty good. And he probably would have been a fine backup for the top division in France as well, temporarily. But yeah, what do we get him for? We got him on a free. Well, actually, he was already at the club, sorry, wasn't he? Then we sold him for 575 grand, and they sold him 2 seasons later for 45 grand. So I think we got a really good deal. We definitely got value from his stats when we sold him. So pretty good business from us. Okay, then next is going to be Julian Lecardinor, who we sold for £250,000. He's pretty much what I expected. From what I remember from him playing was that he was quite poor in the air and he got beat a lot in highlights. But his positioning is very good. Definitely not a Liga Un player. And again, we sold him for £250,000. We bought him for £250,000. Or the club did. So yeah, pretty good, I guess, overall. And last but not least, one of the early heroes of the save in terms of scoring a lot of goals, Pierre-Yves Hamel. Now, we sold him for £1.5 million, and he was very instrumental in us getting our promotion with the amount of goals that he scored. So let's see how good he was. I tell you, I know he's 31, I know it's 2 years ahead, but I bet he wasn't too different. And he's okay, but he's definitely probably not quite our level. I mean, do you know what? I don't know. He's okay as the big man in the strike force, right? And I guess you can see why he worked so well in Liga 2, because he could also probably have done the bit in behind, because with 13 pace, it was just quick enough over a longer distance. Didn't have the acceleration, the agility really to be a proper player for that sort of in behind role, but was good enough as a target man type player, and pretty well rounded for a forward at that level, I would say. So not bad. And there you have it. That is it. It's going to be a nice, short and sharp first attribute reveal. There wasn't too many players that we really sold in the first transfer window, or the first year rather, from the players that we brought in. The next ones will be a lot longer because they'll be involving a lot more players that we'd signed and then sold on. So if we just look at I'm not going to go through them obviously, but if you just look at the amount of players here, that's a lot more players for us to go through there. Just looking down the list, you've got Gori, you've got Banawi, you've got Samir, you've got Mesa, Kofi, Dabila, Mpasi, the goalkeeper, Morgan. We're going to see Morgan next year. That's going to be an interesting one. So yeah, a lot of players there for us to look at going into the next one. But for now, that's going to do us for that. We'll come back next time ready to do our sort of long video on our summer transfer window and look what we can do. It's going to be a lot of me trying to sell players early on and see what funds we can get first, and then looking at the players to scout. In terms of what teams we're going to scout for the stats, it's going to be most likely, I think, it's going to have to be PSG, ourselves, and probably Marseille. I think that's the 3 teams to do. So we're going to use our own stats as well, which is good because we're playing our own formation, of course. But like I was thinking this anyway with Da Costa, there aren't many players that I'd rather search for Da Costa stats and see, is there somebody else similar to Da Costa who's slightly better in the air and maybe cheaper? Then we could maybe look to buy them and sell Da Costa if we needed to. I don't want to do that. But I think ourselves, PSG, and then Marseille are a nice 3-team one to do again next year. So again, next year we've got our recruitment sorted. We'll do the 3 teams yet again, but we'll include ourselves for the first one, which will be nice. But that's going to do the episode. Thank you so much for watching the series. Hope you're enjoying it, and I'll see you next time.